Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you're diving in from. Welcome back to day 2 of the Pente Pitch Challenge. My name is Samantha Becker, and I am a co-founder of ShapingEDU, as well as the Executive Director for Creative and Communications at ASU's University Technology Office. I'm here, and it's actually a really beautiful day here in Tempe, so I could not be more pleased to be underwater with all of you. To get us started for the day, I know we're going to have an amazing keynote from KnowledgeWorks, and we have a panel coming up. But wait, there's more. Let's kick it over to our host with the most, Stephanie Parati.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Big thanks to our sponsors for making this event possible. Our friends here at the University Technology Office at ASU, everyone in the AWS world, and University of Arizona. So thank you guys so much for making this event happen. So let's give you guys a little peek at where we are on socials. So if we can join us on Twitter, you can follow our LinkedIn page, and you can also watch this event as well as other past events on YouTube. So follow us there, engage with us there, start a conversation. Let's chat on socials. So let's quickly look at our code of conduct. And we want to make sure that everyone is being respectful of each other and making sure that everyone understands they're welcome to come in, they're welcome to leave. If the group you're in isn't a good fit for you, feel free to pop out and contact one of us and we can find another fit for you. And we also want to make sure that everyone is being empathetic. So please be respectful and hear everyone's voice in the room and make everyone feel included. So thank you so much for following our code of conduct. Let's take a peek at our agenda for today. We want to make sure that you guys know what's going on. So we're going to start with our friends from KnowledgeWorks, looking at liberatory education futures. And then we're going to have a panel discussion with students hosted by Sam. So Sam will walk us through the concerns and opportunities that our students see from their point of view. And we'll do a little activity with our friends from Serious Play Studio again. Get everybody amped up and ready for their working sessions. And so we'll have 3 hours of time with your teams today. This is a great opportunity to continue the work that you did yesterday. Quick reminder to everyone in the groups, take a break when it feels like a good time to do so. And eat something, please. Feed yourselves. Make sure everybody has time to do that. Once you guys wrap up, we'll go into our pitch sessions at 1:15 Mountain. And then we will have 10 minutes per team. You can either pitch for the full 10 minutes, or you can break that time up how you see fit, answer questions from the judges, or take that full time to present. The judges will convene for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back at 2:30 Mountain and have an announcement of which team is getting which funding. So each judge has $5,000 to allocate how they wish, and we'll find out what that looks like at 2:30 today. Okay, so now I would like to introduce you guys to our friends from KnowledgeWorks. So we have Catherine Prince and Jason Swanson joining us. A little bit about KnowledgeWorks. Let's see. Let's talk about Catherine first. So Catherine is one of the foremost education futurists in the US and leads KnowledgeWorks' exploration of future learning. So as the VP of Strategic Foresight, she speaks and writes about the trends shaping education over the next decade and helps education stakeholders strategize about how to become active agents of change in shaping the future. Before joining KnowledgeWorks in 2006, Catherine supported large-scale changes in working practice at Britain's Open University and helped US federal agencies and other clients increase service quality by incorporating a customer perspective into their organizational planning. So Catherine has a BA in English from Ohio Wesleyan University and an MA in English from the University of Iowa and an MBA from the Open University. So she earned a certificate in foresight from U of H, alma mater, and is a member of the Association of Professional Futurists. So thank you so much, Catherine, for joining us. We also have Jason with us, who is the Director of Strategic Foresight at KnowledgeWorks, and he helps lead the organization's research into the future of learning and works with education stakeholders to generate actionable insights. He's an award-winning futurist and develops forecasts, sense-making guides, artifacts from future and immersive experiences, and is a frequent public speaker and workshop facilitator. So Jason holds a BA in public policy from Westchester University and an MS in foresight from University of Houston. Yay. He is a fellow with the Royal Society of Arts and is a member of the Remake Learning Council. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Catherine, to tell us a little bit about KnowledgeWorks and dive into your presentation.
Great, thank you. Jason and I are delighted to be with you all today. So since 2005, KnowledgeWorks, which is a nonprofit based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and working across the US to help co-create the future of learning with education partners, we've been forecasting the future of education, which means that we bring insights from the field of strategic foresight to the education sector. And strategic foresight is a professional field that helps people anticipate what changes might lie ahead and influence those changes to achieve their long-term goals. So today we'll be going to frame some challenges and opportunities on the horizon by drawing from a forthcoming forecast that KnowledgeWorks will be publishing in early March called Imagining Liberatory Education Futures. Given the level of inertia in education and other social systems, and also increasing awareness of how inequities are baked into them, which leads to all too predictable outcomes, we decided with our new forecast to take a pointed look at what it might mean to make education systems truly equitable. So we looked out to the year 2040 to explore this question, to give some time for things to be significantly different, possibly, than they are today. And in so doing, we came to emphasize the importance of working together to imagine new possibilities for education. That's because we have to imagine what we want for the future of learning before we can make it real. As we explore the future of learning today, I'll share this model called the 3 Horizons model that futurists use to help visualize how looking ahead through foresight can help us articulate what we'd like to see and begin bringing our visions of the future to life. So as you'll be putting in place, no doubt, through some of your solutions today, there are pockets of the future embedded in the present that we can use to grow toward the visions of the future that we want. At the same time, there might be strategies we want to employ that help us kind of transition from where we are now to our ultimate ideals for the future of learning. And there are things that we want to keep running on what this model describes as the first horizon, the things that, kind of our dominant approaches to education today, making sure that we're serving learners well today, even as we move toward our ultimate visions for the future. So as we engage with future possibilities today, I invite you to consider how they might help you consider what you want for the future, for the third horizon in this model, and then what strategies might help you and others move toward that today, either on the first or the second horizons. Any attempt to imagine the future of learning has to take into account the context in which education could be taking place. And at present, the 3 big disruptions shown here describe an era shift that's presenting people around the world with shared existential challenges. Futurist Leah Zaidi described these, and we drew upon them in our forecast, and they've been surfaced by other futurists. These disruptions are shaping our experiences today, and they also promise to impact the next 20 years. Accelerating technologies, which include the advancement and proliferation of artificial intelligence and automation, are reshaping the ways we work and communicate, and even what it means to be human. In addition, the climate crisis, triggered by human activities such as the burning of fossil fuels, is raising questions about which places will remain livable and what people might do to curtail ecological collapse. And while it might seem far away from education, the climate crisis will impact where and how people can live, the stressors that we all face, and the ways schools operate. And climate migration has already begun. Lastly, the fight for just societies throughout much of the world, made more urgent by the decline of functioning democracies, is calling into question the role of government and what it could mean to live in a society where every person were truly free. In the US, this fight has been manifesting through the renewed movement for racial justice and serious concern over the state of our democracy. In the context of these disruptions and the coming era of shared existential challenges, we need to pursue fundamental systemic change. Education systems need to shift focus from equity to liberation. If we seek simply to make our current education systems more equitable, we won't be addressing the systemic structures that make it so hard for too many learners to succeed. We would continue to be placing undue burden on learners, especially those who come from historically marginalized yet resilient communities, to navigate rigid education systems whose underlying structures are oppressive. We need to aim higher than that. We need to make education systems liberatory. We need to imagine what education could look like if it were rooted in self-determination and the right to participate in shaping the world. If it prioritized both human potential and promise at both the individual and collective levels. We need to ask what might be possible if education systems combined insights from the science of learning and from what we know of human development alongside culturally responsive instruction. And what might be possible if they helped historically marginalized yet resilient students who are currently underserved engage in deeper learning. And as we look at possibilities for liberatory education in the year 2040, we see two critical uncertainties. These are kind of big questions that will shape the future and that are too murky for us yet to know how they will unfold. So really determining factors for what might be possible for the future of liberatory education. The first of these is a question about what level of social cohesion we will be experiencing in 20 years or so. Will people be fostering trust across groups, coming together across lines of difference to pursue a shared future, to align around a belief in something bigger than ourselves? Or will we be promoting division and fear of difference, staying within the groups with which we feel affinity? Another part of this is to ask, will those who have enjoyed relative social privilege work to maintain the status quo or choose to engage in dismantling oppressive systems? So a fundamental question influencing what will be possible for the future of learning. The second critical uncertainty is the degree of public institutions' responsiveness, by which we mean how well they hear constituents' needs, work with them to agree priorities, not how quickly they respond. So will public institutions build mutual trust with their constituents, or will they erode it? Will they share power and responsibility, or will they hoard them? Another big question facing the future of learning and the futures we might create together. I'm going to pause here and invite you to put some comments in the chat. I'm curious where you might be seeing examples of the critical uncertainties playing out today, because we know that the seeds of the future are here in the present with us. So where are you seeing high or low levels of social cohesion? Where are you seeing responsive public institutions or unresponsive ones? And I think we can all think pretty readily of examples of the more negative aspects of these questions. So bonus points for anyone who can identify any of the positive sides you can see here. If anyone has any examples to share, we'll continue to look out for those. I'll go ahead and introduce some more ideas. So when we combine the two critical uncertainties that I shared, we get to 4 scenarios that describe possibilities for anti-oppressive and liberatory education in 20 years. Basically, scenarios are stories about possible futures. They can help us question our assumptions about change, test how different future possibilities could play out, and clarify what seems uncertain. Scenarios can offer a shared imaginative space in which people can explore what we do and don't want for the future and where we might focus our work today. In our forecast, we describe 4 scenarios to help people explore what might be possible for liberatory education. In the first, which we called Education Liberation Commons Grow at the Speed of Trust, we imagined that a combination of high social cohesion and low responsiveness of public institutions might cause cohesive communities to take the lead in designing and teaching and learning systems that sustained anti-oppressive educational opportunities. So they would form education liberation commons that would exist alongside public education systems. And we imagined, given the low responsiveness of public institutions, that public education systems would tend to be unresponsive themselves, that they would maintain a narrow, singular focus on academic performance without making a systemic commitment to anti-oppressive strategies. That's one possible future that could unfold. Moving to the right, with high social cohesion and high responsiveness of public institutions, we imagined a scenario that we called care-based ecosystems provide vibrant social infrastructures. In this future, local schools, communities, and public institutions might partner to co-create culturally relevant learning experiences that were delivered through learner-focused ecosystems. And we could see measures of success and quality assurance be overhauled to support them. In this future, teaching in public schools would have expanded to include a greater range and diversity of educator roles, along with more kinds of knowledge frameworks and broader pedagogies. Another possible future for liberatory education. Moving to the combination of low responsiveness and low social cohesion, we imagined a scenario called liberatory education thrives in microstructures. In this future, we could see fractured public education systems erode under environmental and societal constraints, and also due to a relentless focus on helping learners meet minimum graduation requirements. But liberatory education could still flourish through hyperlocal microeducational structures that were organized around local affinity groups and informal social networks. And they might find ways of centering liberation and learning experiences through mechanisms such as tiny schools, learning collectives, and student-led forums. Lastly, in the bottom right, where we might see local social cohesion intersecting with highly responsive public institutions, we imagined a future that we called economic-driven pathways co-opt liberation. So in this scenario, we could imagine that the focus of government would be almost solely on the economy, with constant economic growth prioritized at nearly any cost. As a result, public education would orient its resource allocation and its curricula around supporting designated career pathways and performance targets. Nothing inherently wrong with either of those things, but this would be a very narrow use of them, focused on those economic priorities for society at large. And in this future, people looking for learning opportunities that engage learners with their cultural identities and with cultural knowledge would be left to their own time and resources. And we could see community debate and division rage around whose learning needs were being prioritized. So as you can see, these are quite different futures of learning, of liberatory education, and they give us a range of possibilities to consider as we think about what we want for the future, what possibilities we might want to encourage, which ones we might want to avert, and how we might think about pursuing our visions for the future of learning across any of these scenarios. Again, I'll pause and invite you to share in the chat, if you'd like, any first reactions to these scenarios. And we realize that hearing about future possibilities like these can run the gamut emotionally, from fear to excitement to puzzlement, you name it. People engage with the future, not just intellectually, but emotionally. And we might have many questions as well as many points of excitement. So again, we'll take some moments for anyone who would like to put some first reactions to these scenarios in the chat.
Catherine, I'm not sure you have the time, but there's a fantastic question from Tanya asking why we chose social cohesion and responsiveness of public institutions.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. We looked at many trends shaping the future of liberatory education, or affecting the focal question we asked in this forecast. And we felt that those two were kind of the most influential of the things we had identified, and also the most uncertain. So we felt like that combination of variables would really influence what would be possible for the future of learning. So knowing that not only are we seeing questions and a variety of realities around those two factors today, but then to think about, we would get really different futures of liberatory education depending on how these two variables played out. And there's so much churn in those spaces right now that it's they're both very influential and also very uncertain. Jason, is there anything you'd like to add, or anything else you want to pull in from the chat?
A lot of good reflections. Paul just remarked that these seem really, the scenarios are comfortably familiar and in line with what's happening with ShapingEDU. Donna had asked, and I think that this is also, I know you'll get to this later, but sort of almost like the false choice, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're offered the choice of status quo or dismantling oppressiveness without including improvement or present change for the better, and I was just in the midst of answering her, but sort of this idea of both and, or that tension between relief and transformation.
Yes, and when we identify critical uncertainties and around which to create scenarios, we really look at the two extremes to help us imagine kind of a set of very different futures. But everything in society is a continuum, and yes, it's not like we would be entirely either or as things really played out in practice.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So as we think about what can we do with this glimpse of future possibilities to inform your work, what might you make of all this? Current tensions and dilemmas can help inform how we think about what we want and how we leap from the first or second horizon in that model I shared to the third horizon, or our ideal futures. So I'll highlight some of the tensions and dilemmas that we identified in exploring this forecast, and you will no doubt see many more. So as we looked across the 4 scenarios, we came to realize that developing greater social cohesion seems like a prerequisite for being able to achieve broader systemic transformation in education and enabling new systems and structures to emerge. It seems very unlikely that we'll be able to make that kind of deep change in education if we were to rely only on institutional responsiveness. In addition, liberatory education strategies are going to need to evolve over time and reflect local conditions. So probably no surprise, but there's not going to be any one-size-fits-all strategy. In addition, we've already been alluding to it, this need to balance the near and longer term horizons. So we need still, of course, to aim to do well by learners in current education systems, to think about improvements to that status quo, while also working toward deeper transformation. And as you mentioned, Jason, we can think of this in terms of providing immediate relief and benefit to specific groups, while also aiming to disrupt the systemic patterns and behaviors that have created today's inequities. Narratives are also really important. They help us come together around a shared destination. And in order to clear a path toward liberatory education or toward any vision for the future that we would set, education stakeholders need to find ways to amplify more voices and to create new narratives about teaching, learning, knowledge, and freedom that are different from the ones we've been operating under so far. Alongside that attention to narrative, stakeholders need to broaden perspectives about what education is trying to achieve, its purposes, and how education systems and learners will demonstrate success. Lastly, digital technologies can help address issues of access in today's education system, so they can help in that improvement space. And if they reflect values consistent with what we're wanting for the longer term future, they can help foster new behaviors around teaching and learning. They can help us move toward those longer term horizons. And they, for example, could do things like foster new types of connections and relationships, provide access to expanded sources of knowledge, and enable new ways for learners to show what they know. So as I mentioned, these are just some of the tensions and dilemmas that education stakeholders like yourselves will need to address as you work to shape the future. And we're looking forward to hearing ideas, what ideas you come up with today as you start to rise to this challenge. And also, we'd like to open the floor to questions and answers, and hear what's come to mind for you as we've shared this glimpse of the future, any additional questions and observations.
Catherine, there was a couple of really terrific insights that I think folks would be interested in getting your perspective on. So Emery wrote that he doesn't see scenario C as being all that positive, as microstructure solutions would largely favor communities of privilege.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I said just interested in getting your insight. Curious to hear how you'd respond.
Yeah, I definitely see that risk, and I think that question, that observation, highlights how there are probably positive and negative dimensions of most of these scenarios, and again, to different degrees and in different ways, depending on who's being talked about or who's looking at it. I think that the observation reflects a reality that we already see, more options in schools and school districts in more affluent communities than less affluent ones today. And that would be a risk that would need to be managed. At the same time, I think there could be ways in which new structures, kind of new funding streams, new kind of community-based efforts could emerge that are kind of hard to imagine today.
Yeah, I think that power imbalance is very real, and the danger of nascent structures, especially microstructures, being overshadowed is very, very true. David, with a fantastic insight, really asks, aren't we living in some version of scenario C today? David, from my standpoint, that is almost the expected future or the baseline future, where it feels a little different, but we've made a lot of assumptions to extend that out into the present, or rather assumptions to extend that out into the future. Catherine, curious to know your angle on this.
Yeah, I definitely see how there's a lot of seeds of this future in the present too. I think that this scenario pushes it further. So it takes the idea of education systems being strained further to think about, what if they were just under even more pressure than they are today and really narrowed focus as a result. And I think that while there are seeds of the kind of micro educational structures happening for sure, and that's part of why this is a plausible future, I think that there would be kind of a lot more space probably than exists today to think about how those might specifically orient around liberatory education, or how they might become more widely available. And I think I tend to see kind of little pockets of present in most of these scenarios.
Catherine, we've had a couple of people ask if they can have your deck for reference in their working sessions today. Would you be able to share that with us so we can pass it along to the participants?
Yes, we'd be happy to.
Fantastic, thank you.
I think we cleared out the chat box. So one, for participants, this is an open invite. We'd love to answer any questions that you all have. Or if there's anything else you'd want to know about the creation of the forecast beyond the content, also happy to address that as well.
Yes, so Karina is asking if it's possible to put the scenarios back up on the screen quickly so we can take a peek at those. And so Karina will have the deck to pass along as well. So that will be in the deck too. But if we could put that back up, that would be great.
I have that coming. Just a sec.
And Ali asks, how would a Gutenberg invention type paradigm impact the possible futures? A future where educational content creator can create personalized content for consumers at scale with affordable pricing. Yeah, that kind of feels like where we're at with adaptive learning and other nascent forms of content creation. But I could also be misunderstanding the question.
Great. Okay. Well, Catherine and Jason, thank you guys so much. Any other closing thoughts, or shall we move along?
Just thank you for the chance to share our work, and for all the participants online. Thank you for all that you're doing to improve the lives of learners.
And you as well. Thank you guys so much. Go Cougars.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you guys. And we appreciate it and look forward to receiving the deck so we can pass it along to the folks that are participating in the event today.
I'll send it right along. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.